Hi, and welcome to Lecture 6 in the UX Design Prototyping course given by the Technical University of Denmark. We are going to continue a little with what we had in the previous lecture where we talked about voice as input. So voice understood as when we have in-ear devices with built-in microphones and little speakers, how can we interact with a concept at the other end? And that concept could entail some artificial intelligence, and this is where the chatbots come in. So I listed some very nice articles from The Economist as literature for this lecture here. And it's really a question of when you go in and say we kind of find ourselves in a post-app universe now. There's this feeling that rather than having all these separate little things, wouldn't it be nice if you could somehow tie it together? And of course this thing with the voice is one way of tying your intentions together with what's happening on the phone, on the watch and so on. But it's also of course this whole Internet of Things aspect where you can connect all sorts of services. You say something, this is understood. So the typical cases like, you say or have an address, or you figure out what is your address based on your position, and it's, the app is already calling you a cab or something like this. But what is really interesting, I think, in some of these emerging services like the Chinese WeChat, which is probably the most advanced you have at the moment, is that Internet of Things here even includes little stuffed animals. So if you imagine a toddler going blah 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 blah, you can actually sort of go onk on the stomach of this one here, and it becomes more like a phone. So you can record an audio clip, and it's then pre-assigned to shipping this to the parents. So the parents will sort of go, the WeChat thing pops up, and there's a voice memo there from the kid going la 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 la, and then the parents can say answer and send this voice clip back, which is then going to be played back by the stuffed animal. So I think it just shows that we'll see all sorts of devices now, which will be like entry points to this universe here, and it could be your voice from just being picked up from an earpiece. It could be something you activate, whatever. And in this case, it works the way that all the things in the WeChat universe have their own little unique QR code. And this means that even toy animals have their own ID. And this also makes it possible to create a whole business around a stuffed animal. So you can see you can also take language courses and so on. So it's not just staying in contact with the parents in this case here, it's also an educational tool, and it's a really great idea. But for the more grown-ups of us, where stuffed animals are limited to the little animated stickers there you can get. And I think what works perfectly fine is really the way it integrates with the watch. So again, when we talk complementary design, what part do you want on the phone? What part do you want to turn up here? And in this case, there are some very nice aspects for, just press and you get your own unique QR ID, your WeChat ID up here. This means it's very, very easy to start payment transactions and purchase stuff using the app. So it's great success, right? The other thing is that by using the watch in collaboration with the messaging, you would have things where you could just sort of go hi to somebody, sending a signal as it is, but it could also be these moments you want to share with somebody. And then the watch integration means that whenever you turn the wrist, you sort of see when something new has happened. So you can just sort of keep updated by looking at the screen, and you get all these little things in a story. So Facebook is not sitting around idle here and saying, this is too bad. They of course try to do this, so that's why they would split off messaging in the first place when they did this, turned into the Facebook Messenger. And of course also WhatsApp, which is similarly owned by Facebook, trying to get into these things. How can we build things around messaging? So kind of in one sense, maybe not replacing the operating system, but creating your own universe on top of the operating system. So what has been done is similar to what we talked about in the previous lecture with Apple, opening up the possibility for you creating apps which can access the Siri voice. Artificial intelligence, you also have ways where you can build your own bots in Facebook Messenger for your app. And this means that essentially they have a send-receive API for sending text, sending audio, sending video. So these would just be the speech bubbles, but depending on what it is you want, then you might do any of these things. And then I think what ties really well into the Lean UX part is the emphasis on design patterns, that they have a lot of little templates and saying, to make it simple, do it like this. You return this as a response and you give people these input possibilities as little predefined ways to keep this dialogue going. And this means what we have here is what would be termed a CUI, a conversational user interface. And you, similar to the Apple Siri, also here has a possibility to go in and improve. You can go in and train the AI so it becomes better at solving the tasks you want it to solve. But what you can see here is that a simple example for the Messenger platform is that instead of having a weather forecast as something static, it here becomes a dialogue. So, it has much more of a personal touch. There's somebody you're communicating with now. A little like what we talked about with Siri having this attitude and not just being a personal assistant, but being a person somehow. And the design patterns here is one way of saying it's very simple to access, and when you access something, you really switch on a message thread, which means that it will go hi, and then you go hi, and here you wouldn't start with saying, so who are you, right? You would pretty well know who that person is on the other end. So I think the strong opportunities in this is really that the app already knows who's at the other end, and this means that it will be able to customize the questions and take the answers better into consideration, I think, from knowing what is actually going on with this person. So you can see this as a way for a brand to interact as a living thing somehow. And again, some simple examples of you have a little text thing which is returned, and more or less like cards, you have these opportunities then for this is what you should choose among, and then there will be yet another choice based on what you choose and so on. So it's a very simple way of doing things. These are static images, could be video instead. But I think what is really, really nice here is if you can get to the point where, these are the people and these are the brands, and the brands could be the stuffed toy animal, or it could be maybe a little more like what we're talking about if we have these in-ear devices that you can talk to your in-ear device, and what could you do then? So that's your turn to figure out what could you do then. But I think what you should think of is really combining these aspects, saying we have these entities which are Internet of Things connected devices, whether they're toy animals, in-ear speakers and microphones, or whatever they are. We also have this way where we can say we are context aware. We know where is the user right now, what is the user doing, or at least we might be better at doing that by training our system. So we already have some pretty good knowledge about what situation is the user in. Then we have the convenience of the voice, that you don't have to sit and input things, so you could do this with voice. But I think when we say a message bot, we think more like how Facebook actually works with a messenger to make sure that the dialogue is optimized so that you have the right amount of choices, not too many so it gets too confusing, not so few that it won't really have a value. So there's a balance there. And then again, the whole thing here is providing this augmented hearing thing. So think of it as being plugged in all the time. Like these things stay in your ear as long as you're awake or as long as there's a battery left. And this really gives you a lot of possibilities now for just saying something which is being understood, as we talked about in the previous lecture. Your intentions are transformed into actions, and there will be some sort of confirmations, some sort of feedback from the user interface here. So it's not just a voice thing, right? Things will pop up on the watch and so on, but try and get this into a much bigger sort of universe. And to solve that out, again, I think it's absolutely crucial that you work with this in the storyboard. So meaning all the wireframes you have, or the essential wireframes you have, how do they connect up with microinteractions? Meaning what triggers what are the rules associated with that? What is the feedback? How should it act when implementing this rule? And then there could be also more structural things, like saying, are some of these things reoccurring as loops? So should we try and design it like this? Or are these things more like modes where you simply switch, you go into something, and then how do you get back again? So these things altogether is much more like how would you program, how would you code this thing? But from a sort of view where you can have the overall impression of what's going on, what is it all about, and how can we more or less almost in pseudocode figure out how everything connects in this little universe here.